Drew, I don't know if you noticed, but there is a field goal here in the Cumberland River in Nashville, Tennessee. You mapped it out 2.4 miles from Vandy Stadium all the way to that river. They had to go through Broadway. I can imagine being a bachelorette party on Saturday night, seeing that, what was going down after Vandy pulled off the massive upset over Alabama, knocking off the number one ranked team 40-35. Drew, now time to talk about how they built this. Vandy 3-2, Clark Lee. Drew, one of our, I think, favorite guys to really cover because we know how difficult of a job this is, and he's just had to build it up more meticulously year after year. Shout out to Barton Simmons, used to be the director of scouting, your job here at 24/7 Sports, helping lead that operation. So, Drew, it's been a long time coming since Vandy had a win like this. This might be the first time in program history since they've had a win like this. So help us understand how'd they get to this point.
Well, it's definitely the biggest win in program history. That's a for sure. I think they were 0-60 against AP top 5 opponents heading into this one. They get the job done. I got one word for you, Cooper: adaptability. I think that is how we describe how Vanderbilt got this done. And I think for a lot of programs around the country, they need to take a look at Vanderbilt and see what has transpired really over the past 6 to 12 months. Clark Lee, when he took over there at Vandy, he tried to build through the high school ranks. And there was a lot of former prep recruits making plays on Saturday for the Commodores, but there was also a lot of transfers. And Vanderbilt 2 cycles ago brought in just 3 transfers. This cycle, 23 different transfers. Clark Lee realized he needed to pivot and change his operation, how they were going to go about things with this name, image, likeness, with player movement at an all-time. He went to the administration. They figured it out. They started bringing in some veterans. 2 of those veterans, Cooper, I want to highlight. Diego Paiva, the quarterback who comes in from New Mexico State. He is a cult hero. I love this guy. Went back, watched the high school tape. He was a no-star recruit coming out of high school. Ends up at a junior college, number 3 ranked JUCO QB for us in 2022. And he finds his way to Vanderbilt as he follows his former coach, Jerry Kill, and offensive coordinator, Tim Beck, who Clark Lee hired after he saw Diego Paiva and those coaches take down Auburn the previous season. The other guy, Eli Stowers, tight end. He also comes from New Mexico State, former top 247 quarterback. He was excellent against Alabama. They had no answers for him. 6 catches for 113 yards. He leads Vanderbilt in both catches, receiving yards this season. Coop, when he entered the portal last year, I said, this guy's a dude. I think there was some pushback. And then sure enough, he comes up big in the biggest upset of the season.
Drew, I think you mentioned it, when we were talking today and trying to dissect Vanderbilt. They were one of the more picked over rosters here the last 2 years because you think about the SEC and their opponents, but the advanced scouting that obviously goes in, and you think about these operations at Georgia, and London Humphreys was a receiver at Vanderbilt who came on the scene and flashed, and the next season he's over there in Athens playing under Kirby Smart. This is what Clark Lee has had to deal with. And you talked about adaptability. Not only did they adapt from a scheme standpoint, but from a roster management, talent acquisition standpoint as well. So we bring up Barton Simmons, but it's really credit to Barton and Clark Lee with the job that they did, because they went out there and said, okay, we don't want to be a 5-7, a 6-6 bowl eligible team. Clark Lee is one of those guys that's gotten up in front of a podium on a SEC media day, and he expects Vanderbilt to be a national championship contender. He believes that, and to see that belief on the field is another thing. And obviously, you can start to see the steps of which they have taken. But Drew, they've lost guys like Will Shepard to Colorado, Ethan Barr to UCF. I mentioned London Humphreys, Savion Riley, another guy to Miami, AJ Swan to LSU opens the door for their quarterback position. But everything that has happened here over the offseason for Clark Lee to take a step back and say, you know what, it's not good enough. Whatever we're doing is not going to give us the results that we want. And we have a 2-3 year context to say, you know what, we got to pivot. We got to make a move. They go out, they hire Jerry Kill, who led the turnaround at New Mexico State. Tim Beck comes over with them. The amount of humility that takes in this industry to look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what we've been doing hasn't been the way. And I got to find an answer for Clark Lee. That's pretty amazing, and it's a testament to the type of man, the type of individual that he is leading that program. You don't see that a lot, Drew, and good for him and good on them to win this game because that's pretty rare, at least in what I've seen with my own personal experience.
So again, the theme, adaptability, right? 20 plus transfers come in, including a quarterback and a tight end who, again, delivered on Saturday. The other thing, Cooper, scheme, right? Scheme, Jerry Kill, Tim Beck, what they were able to do. They ran the ball a season high 51 times. They only threw it 26 times. 18 designed quarterback runs. They knew what they were doing with Diego Paiva. And I think what also stands out, Cooper, is the last time Vanderbilt played Alabama, it was 2 years ago. They gave up 4 sacks, surrendered 11 pressures. This past Saturday, 0 sacks, just 6 pressures. It's a veteran offensive line. They took Alabama's front 7 essentially out of the game, right? They didn't allow those edge rushers, the Quay Russaw, to come around and hit Diego Paiva. So that scheme as well. And how is Vanderbilt going to hang in this new look SEC? Run a little bit of a different offense, right? Put the ball in the hands and the legs of your quarterback. And I'll say this, Cooper, you look at Vandy's roster, they have some of these other guys coming down the pipe to be the signal caller. Nate Johnson, the transfer from Utah, former Freaks List member. They got 2 guys committed that both fit this scheme. So I don't think this is kind of a one and done type of situation. I think Vanderbilt is set up to be a pest for a lot of these SEC programs that are expecting, hey, kind of a bye week for us after a big win against Georgia. No. You better be prepared, much like teams used to have to be prepared to face the triple option, right, when they were scheduling the service academies. I think this is the perfect decision for Clark to go to this type of offense.
I thought about that in my head. Like if you're Vanderbilt and you're looking for a way to be competitive in a league that top to bottom is the most talented conference in all of college football, how do you do that? Well, schematically, you got to be a little bit different. You got to be very difficult to prepare for, which you think about Alabama coming off a highly emotional game against Georgia and then have to turn around and play Vandy. And Vandy, Drew, I mean, double overtime on the road against Missouri. They lose to Georgia State. I know they wish they had that game back. They're very close to being 5-0. And the conversation surrounding this program's very different, not just talking about an upset, but a team that could potentially be one game off of bowl eligibility as well. The other thing that you mentioned, how about the offensive line? You mentioned combined 102 starts between them. The theme here between every team we cover every week, there's a pattern starting to emerge, is the offensive line play. We've looked at Tennessee, we've looked at Texas, you can go on and so forth. And all of these teams that are contenders, it starts with their offensive line. And we talk about the franchise quarterback. And obviously, Vandy's got a guy that they like a lot that's done it at a high level. And that guy's a difference maker, played his tail off. But that's the combination right now. Vandy's got a unique opportunity this year, Drew, that I think if they can get to a bowl, that will build huge momentum. Our guy, Robbie Weinstein, who covers Vandy for 24/7 Sports, was talking about guys like Donovan Starr, Stephon Shivers. Donovan Starr is a top 247 corner committed to Auburn currently. Stephon Shivers was committed to Georgia as a defensive lineman up until a couple days ago. You think about the recruiting momentum as we take a step back and view this from 30,000 feet, Drew. You know, in 2022, they were ranked 32nd. I might be alone on this, but I actually think Vandy can live there from 30 to 35. I think they can potentially be a top 30 recruiting program in the country, but it's going to have to take this type of on-field success, this type of context to be able to show recruits that say, hey, we're building something, come be a part of this. In the state of Tennessee, man, I'm telling you, it is a talented state. If he can keep some of these guys home, he's got something cooking.
And we've seen them go down into Alabama, Florida. They're not afraid to recruit anywhere. Heck, Cooper, in that front 7 for the Commodores in the 2 deep, they had 2 German-born defenders that played some meaningful snaps for them. And I know Barton Simmons many years ago went across the pond when he was working at 24/7 Sports to scout one of those camps just like we have. So I thought it was pretty cool to see some international flavor doing it for Vanderbilt. And I think they have to think outside the box, right? Adaptability. Where are you going to get your talent from? You got to go into different corners of not only the country, the world, that other people aren't willing to do if you're going to get that edge. And it's coming together here for Vanderbilt as of late.